Welcome and thanks for joining us today. Really just an honor to be with these individuals. I'm here live with Esther, Mark, Melissa, and I'm Sharon's son, George. And this is the first of hopefully many just talks. We're going to really possibly call it Unscripted, where we finally, in my opinion, for the first time, could be ever, at least in my research, we're bringing together individuals who've been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease and one caretaker, that's me, of someone who had a loved one who unfortunately passed due to Parkinson's. And again, we all agree this is really just unscripted time to talk, to not just get to know one another, but really for listeners or anyone out there just to learn. If you have any questions or some topic that really interests you, feel free to email any of us. And again, this is a family. We're all here together. And I'm going to let anyone join me today, let you all take it away.
Let's see. Well, I think the best part about the Parkinson's community is the fact that everyone is so open and present. When I was first diagnosed, I was kind of looking for people to just kind of bounce information off of, and I was able to network with so many different people and learn so many things that I never would have known without having these conversations, which I think is amazing. So there's so much opportunity out there to learn from each other, particularly on the topic of being a care partner or a loved one of someone who's living with Parkinson's, because the perspectives are completely different.
Mm.
And
one of the things too that we look at is there's different aspects of the Parkinson's community, and there's different stages of each of those aspects. In other words, you've got someone that might be just recently diagnosed, then you've got somebody that's been diagnosed for 15 years. You might have a caretaker that is somebody caretaking over somebody in stage 1, and then somebody that's caretaking over somebody in stage 5.
right.
There's a wealth of experience that goes on, and as those stages are reached, or the different points are reached in the experience, people's needs change. And when somebody's first diagnosed, they don't need to hear necessarily some of the details of the end stages. They need to know what they can do now to keep the stages, at bay, kind of thing. And there's that, and you can get it more into diet and exercise. But if somebody's got a loved one in stage 5, maybe there's considerations for, paperwork that needs to be filled out, and things like that are not a very pleasant topic, but it needs to be discussed, right? And so that's the thing. So much information, and there's so much misinformation out there, and so much misunderstanding at each of those phases, that you could talk about Parkinson's day in and day out for 365 days a year, which many of us do, and you will never be able to touch all of it. It's ending.
And not all the information is relevant from one sector to the other. Right. If you just take, regular onset Parkinson's and YOPD, like those are two completely different trajectories as far as symptoms and things like that. So what's relevant in this part of the community is not necessarily relevant in another. So it's good to make it topical to the audience, and then you can just pick and choose what you're going to listen to, because I don't want to hear about like what I can do in the beginning stages of my Parkinson's, because I'm past that already. I've heard all that information. You've heard all that information. But somebody else may have something, that allows us, what else can we do to keep going? How can I amp up my exercise? How can I blah, 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 which is, better for relevancy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think as somebody newly diagnosed, obviously I'm still learning from everyone. And something that I realized really right away with the community is everybody just has such a unique perspective. And, you always hear that term that Parkinson's is a snowflake disease and we're all different, which is true. Like, if you've met somebody with Parkinson's, you've met one person with Parkinson's, but there are always these threads of commonalities to our experiences. And that to me are so important. But as you were talking about, Mel, these issues of things that we don't really want to think about that are going to be our shared reality at some point to some degree. People tend to shy away from, and as you all know, I'm that person that tends to latch on to those subjects that people want to shy away from. That's just my nature. I don't do it to be provocative. It's like I want to scratch, past the surface and get down to the meat of things, because, ever since I got diagnosed, I have this sense of urgency about life in general. And so Parkinson's is a big part of my life. And so I want to get as much information as I can to prepare for the future. I mean, obviously we can't prepare for it all, but I mean, things like, advanced directives, medical power of attorneys, end of life planning. I mean, every time I go to the doctor's office, they're like, "Do you have it?" And I'm like, "Nope, nope, nope," in my carefree way. And now I'm like, I need to do that. And I think it's hard things to think about, but if we all just go ahead and like rip the Band-Aid off and just start chucking away at these things, it's going to be better, not just for us, but for our care partners. Because I was talking to a friend who has a father who has dementia. She's a nurse by profession, and she was saying how hard that balance is between being, a daughter and a nurse, your role as someone who this was, you're cared for you and now you're caring for them.
Right.
And how, lonely she felt. And I'm sitting here thinking how lonely I felt. I feel, in the disease itself. And so again, that commonality of that loneliness can always be sort of improved by sharing our stories, sharing what works for us, and just kind of being present in that moment together. And that's why I'm so excited about this forum, because I really think that bringing the groups together is going to, create that shared experience for everybody and just make a really big difference. So thank you, George.
And
and it reduces
One-
the violation, the isolation feeling, the isolated feeling from, realizing that there's commonality between everyone.
Yeah, I had to, obviously the whole world, you don't plan to be a caretaker. You can't take a class on it. I mean, my mother had it for 15 years. She was very independent and didn't tell anyone. So she spoke to my father about they were divorced. He's a medical doctor, but she always, until the last 3 to 4 years is when I had to take over. But she never wanted anyone to know because she wanted me to worry about my kids and my family. And my mother was very strong, but amazing planner. I mean, she did the whole funeral plan before she even dreamt this would happen. I helped her with the attorney information. Obviously, even though I'm a lawyer, I hired another one to take care of it. But I can definitely also talk about all of that. But she did a lot of things that I thank her now for. That going through it again, if I had to make those decisions, would have been even more nightmarish. So in a way, I have to, thank her. But we were told, and this is so many topics that we'll hopefully get to. We might be doing these for 20 years, I hope, together. But we were told you do not, die of Parkinson's, you die with it. Again, horrible topic to even discuss. But my mother had no other medical issues. The only thing that I think could have happened is, when she passed, we had 3 bags of garbage bags that I threw out, and we don't know, the caretakers were giving the medicine the right amount at the right times, and it was just too many medicines. Then the dementia set in. There's just so many areas that, it's tough. And again, I think, like Esther said, it's so important, and I like that you fight too. You have to talk about these things. If we just continue to ignore Death with Dignity Act, which we don't have in Florida, medical marijuana, or stages. I didn't even know there was such a thing as stages till we were in stage 5 fast. You'll never be able to find resolution. So I commend everyone for, again, I think you're all not just courageous, but very brave. I think everyone obviously out there fighting anything, and caretakers are brave, but to stand up and speak out is how we are going to find a cure, in my opinion. And as you all know, I won't sleep because unfortunately we lost our fight. Every time I think of the 3 of you and all those individuals out there still fighting every day, I don't sleep. And there's a lot of nights that I don't sleep. You'll probably see me post, and some of you are posting with me at 5 a.m. But I
We have
had-
many late night conversations.
I was brought into this world like all of you. We didn't want to be, but I really so inspired by the three of you and all the individuals I've met, and it really just it's so touching. And the best thing that I always joke, I don't want any damn thing in return except a cure. That's it. There's nothing.
Yeah.
And now you three know me well, but it's hard when you meet someone new, even online. You don't know them. World
Yeah.
Parkinson's, email. It's the only way because of social media. Thankfully, I'm able to reach people. They're getting this email from a strange guy. Don't know who I am. Don't know I'm actually in law enforcement and I'm a real person. Talking about Facebook, if we have, no offense to Facebook, but time Esther was mentioning about the groups, I actually had, and I'm going to be honest on this talks, I had someone actually claim my mother didn't pass and I'm not a caretaker. So they thought I was trying to
Oh, yeah.
people with money. I'm like, that's why I don't accept money. If you go to togetherforchange.com, we give people back money. We donate all the money to the American Parkinson's Disease Association, Parkinson's Foundation, and Michael J. Fox, plus Brian Grant, Davis. There's so many amazing ones that I love them all. But it's sad that even in 2023 we've come far, but you can't seem to do things for others unless you want them in return. And that's not true in this case.
Yeah, we're just in it to win it. That's what it is.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, George, you are making a tremendous impact, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah,
You're truly a tireless advocate, and I refer to myself as an advocate. I think it would be the same for both Esther and Melissa too. But you are truly somebody who's fighting the fight and championing Parkinson's in a very powerful way, and I really appreciate what you're doing. And I want to make sure that in your own mind you're not minimizing your impact, because you might say, well, I'm just a caretaker. You're not a person with Parkinson's. You still have a very, very valuable story to tell that relates the impact of Parkinson's, and you've got a very loud and a very respected voice. So please do not undercut your impact, George, because you are making an impact, and we're all the benefactors of that. So keep it up, George, because I'm encouraged by you, and you make me laugh. I get messages from you, and it's always great to hear from you. But it's like
This is how I met Mark. That's how I met Mark. Just so you know.
Oh, there you go.
I never heard of what a parky is until Mark started posting, and I fell in love. Mike, he's like literally, we must be related brothers somehow or something. Because I miss Parky on your feed. I know he'll come back, he or she. We don't know.
Well, my latest post I actually had him in there because I did miss him too.
You're sleeping. I remember.
Yeah.
That was hysterical.
That was hilarious. That was
really
hilarious.
He's
It
actually
really was.
He's actually at the foot of my bed. He's underneath a serape at the foot of my bed, covered up and nicely bundled up. So there you go.
Oh, I appreciate your words. And like I said, it's just a shame that we can't. The only heartbreaking journey or story is the one that I either don't know about or I can't reach to tell. Because there's people out there that need to be heard, but either they're busy, whatever they have. But even this is not my plug for my website or anything, but if you're ever out there and you're interested in sharing your journey, I'm actually, again, I think I mentioned it before we started, kind of cutting back, is not burnt out, but done over 400 in 3 months, and it's time to move to something more. I mean, I'll always have it available, but I've also just those individuals, including all of you that did respond, just again, touched my family's heart, my heart, and like I promised, I'm not gonna, it's not like we put that up and that see you later. I mean, you all know now I'm going to be sharing it, every single year. It's 365 days a year. So every day I'll, do it again. So you'll all be popping up everywhere again. But, there's just, I feel sometimes that there's just not like, even in one more second, one more post, but then I think I'm doing too much. I asked all of you. I love having your advice. And again, I think we're a family in this.
Well, I feel like the same topics need to be addressed sometimes, because there's so many things out there. And, I mean, obviously my thing is always Parkinson's looks like me, but, we did a big thing even with Eric and Graystrong, we also did Parkinson looks like us, because we had a person in our group for the longest time where she didn't have Parkinson's. She didn't know anybody with Parkinson's. She just was like, these are cool people. These are my people. And she was like, well, I'm just a person. Well, you're not just a person. If you're supporting a group of people for literally no reason other than you think they're cool people and you're still supportive, like that's part of the community. You're still part of a community, you know. It's not just Parkinson's looks like me or looks like you. It's like Parkinson's looks like us. Like that's the bringing together of care partners and caregivers and people who love people with Parkinson's, and you know, people who just think we're cool, which is, you know, always nice. So
well, George and I have talked about this before. I mean, realistically, until we break outside of our own communities, we're never going to get a cure, because there has to be that awareness outside of the scope of people who have some, what I call skin in the game. So somebody that is a friend, family member, somebody who touched their lives. I mean, right now, obviously those are our champions and we love them, but the you know, not to generalize, but like the diseases that have really broken through that wall and, you know, become part of the general population's collective knowledge are the ones that have been able to destigmatize more successfully, get the better treatments and reach more people. And I think that's super important. I always talk about autism. I mean, when I was growing up, we didn't know anything about autism. We saw some kid, you know, acting differently, making different movements. We thought there was, you know, something or scary or there's something wrong with them. Now, my children have grown up around, you know, an awareness of autism that they don't even bat an eyelash, you know, and that's because it's broken through that niche of a condition and become something really that everybody knows at least a little
you
something
normalize
about.
it. Just normalize it, you know.
Yeah. And
That's why when
what
my
we
kids
have
are
to
in school,
do.
they're clapping like this. They clap like this in school, you know.
Yeah.
And everyone's like looking around, and for me, it's so normal. I'm just like, okay, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Taking that stigma out is very, very important, and we need to speak to the people who are not listening right now. Those are the people that we need. Our community already knows what we need. You know, we all know what we need, but nobody else knows because they're not listening. So, we'll
and
make
I
them
mean,
listen.
as you know, I mean, my thing is the medical community. I mean, just the lack of awareness within the medical community to me from day one has been, and I was a part of it, so I understand why that is, but it's just, it's so important. I mean, we can talk about specific things that happen with our treatment and our diagnosis and all that, but it's kind of a moot point if there's still this just general lack of awareness within the medical community itself of what it's like for us living with this disease, you know. I mean, you would never tell somebody with cancer that that's all in their head, you know what I mean? It's just a totally different thing. So
but they don't realize it, you know. And coming from the mental health perspective, you know, the shame of it is that, you know, a large majority of people with Parkinson's live with mental health issues, you know, and I've worked and I've volunteered for you know, mental health since actually high school, you know, and most people know my history, you know, as a survivor of suicide and things like that, or survivor of suicide loss. But with the mental health aspect as well, like these are things that people don't talk about. So the stigma kind of is still there, creating a roadblock in front of a bunch of people, you know, and if we don't continue to discuss it, it's never gonna come out.
This just made me think of something. I mean, postpartum depression. I mean, think of how far we've come with something like postpartum depression. In the generation of my mother, the person who gave birth to me, there was no understanding of postpartum depression. And now it's a common household term and there's not that level of stigma around it. So within one generation, you can make that leap. You know, I really believe that.
Well, Esther, you talked about the lack of knowledge in the medical field, and one of the most telling things that I found, I had a friend of mine that went through nursing school, and when they got to the segment in nursing school on Parkinson's disease, I got a message, hey, we're covering Parkinson's, you know, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's great, you know, and as she was going through it, we were messaging back and forth, and pretty soon it was like, well, we're done on Parkinson's, but they never touched on medication schedule. They never touched on food impact. They never touched on non-movement symptoms the way that you talk about. And she said, yeah, I learned more about Parkinson's from watching your videos than I did in nursing school about Parkinson's. And that just floored me, because it shouldn't be that way, but you only have, I understand in a school curriculum, you only have so much time to cover certain diseases. And that's why the Parkinson's Foundation is making a big effort to get to nursing schools and get to the core of those caregivers, and when they're trained, and say, here's a little bit more information for you about Parkinson's, because those poor nurses go into caretaking, and they're not armed or equipped to deal with it. And one of the fortunate things, where you see the positive side, is a friend of mine became a nurse, and she was in a vaccination line and looked up and saw somebody standing in line to get their vaccination, but recognized the symptoms of Parkinson's through different things that I've talked about, and went over and asked the gentleman, do you need to have a seat? Do you need to sit down? And the gentleman said, yes, I have Parkinson's and she knew it. And so she was thrilled to share that with me. And that's one of those, like, yay, there's somebody that took what was spoken and put it into practice, kind of thing, as a nurse. And you love that, but it's just the knowledge is lacking. And you can't boil the ocean. You can't change everything all in one day, though we would like to, but it's so painful when change is so slow. And that's the frustrating part of it.
Yeah, I think it's important, and it's funny, we're talking about medical, but so many other fields. We've talked about the first responder field. I'm also a police officer in reserve, but we mentioned it earlier, I'll be doing a book in the future. Hopefully you'll be joining with me. But, right now in law enforcement, in the academy at least, there's no time at all. I don't even think the word Parkinson's disease is in any of the books. So what happens if an officer pulls someone over? Could be somebody, any size, any height, any race, any whatever, and they're, shaking from uncontrollably at that moment because maybe they didn't have their medications that they're just, out of spontaneous. And the officer, could be dark at night. I'm painting the picture like I'm a prosecutor again. And you're walking up to the car and the rolls down the window and they're shaking uncontrollably. Officers in the dark, doesn't have the training. We know it, and they have their weapon out because it's late in who knows what area. And that's not going to end good. So it's the things that have to be changed throughout all the EMS. It could be not just EMS, it could be fire department. They have a little more training, EMT, but police, in my experience, do not. So medical, the nice thing is I've been reading End Parkinson's Disease, the book, because I'm doing a lot of research, as you all probably saw. I bought like 20 or 30 books on Parkinson's, not to, become a scientist or say I'm going to be a researcher, but just to learn more. When you're a caretaker with my mother, I saw it all. Like, I've seen everything that you don't know. Some of the, like, I can't really talk much about medications. I've seen and I know what she took, but I didn't myself take it. But I'm learning, a lot of topics and areas that are so important, like DBS. It's just, so now I'm posting them, but I think of everyone when I'm posting because I don't want to offend anyone. I don't want to, think someone thinks that I had DBS. So I think it's important for even caretakers to talk about these things, because they're going to be sitting there in the room with the doctors. And I'd love to hear all of your views in the future, as we're running out of time today, but on DBS, on all these, levodopa and all, so many topics. Like, I would need 7,000 hours, and your families will never let me speak to me again. But it's just fascinating how it's not like the word Parkinson's disease is so many, it's not just a word or two. It's like a whole world of topics and things that they affect everyone's lives, everyone. And I still hate to say it, but I can get it tomorrow. So I'm not going to be someone who's not realistic. I've been reading a lot of this, and we don't know why you get it yet, or individuals, why you're diagnosed. Could be now, the pesticides, could be the water, Camp Lejeune. I'm learning all this stuff. Almost become like overload. But I do feel strongly that it could possibly have been with my mother. She lived in a nice community for 20 years, 15 years. She had a nice house, but she had termites, so she had spray for that. She had mold in the house, so she had something for that. Bugs over the years, they didn't have organic like we do today. So could it have been? Yes. So, it's just so many fascinating things in science, medical, and research that we really, four of us, have to get down to in the next time.
Agree
So
with that.
yeah, on that note, again, this is our first official unscripted. I don't know if anyone else wants to, we're going to work at the King, so I want everyone to get time. Need to have a talk with Mark. Yes, we're alive, but how you get that beautiful lighting? Because I'm sorry, I got to get lighting like you all have. But before we do sign off for this talk, does anyone have anything they want to plug or talk about that you're working on? Because again, the three of you really so I have some exciting things in the future we'll talk, but I get so excited when I hear, Esther was at an incredible convention, and Mark's podcast, Melissa's, sometimes her posts are heartfelt and touching, and I love them, but then I'm sad. But I love.
I make a lot of people cry.
Yeah, I know it's for good, positive.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mean to, but
Oh, I love it. So does anyone, maybe we can just go around the room quick and just throw out anything you might be working on you want to share, because I'm hoping this will not, I'm hoping this won't just reach the floor of our social media, but, others around the world.
Well, I'll go first because, as you mentioned, I was at the Parkinson's study group with the Parkinson's Foundation this weekend in Austin, and I got the new hospital safety guide. And this is what I've been waiting to get my hands on. I'm super excited. Just basically, they took the Aware and Care Kit and compiled it into this with so much more stuff. And I love it, especially because it's really written to empower the patient to take ownership of their safety as well. Of course, there's already things in the works with the collaborative that they're doing nationally from the healthcare provider side. So it's like this two-pronged attack, which I love. And I'm just looking forward to educating people on this and, doing whatever I can to support them because they put so much amazing time into this. And I just love everything about it. So don't say that nothing's happening because it's all happening.
Maybe we can even do a whole hour on, that if you'd like. I'd love to do that.
Yeah, it's very important.
Who's up next?
Let's see.
Ladies first.
Well, we're going to re-release meaning me, we're going to re-release the royal we. Parkinson's Looks Like Me video because the stats already have changed in a year. So that's coming out. Greg and I are going to be, we have podcasts coming out. And then also it's like dating in Parkinson's and kind of just parenting with Parkinson's, things like that. Maybe some other racer topics if we get that far and have some kind of appeal. And then we'll be heading up a local chapter in Galveston of one of the local Parkinson's chapters here. We'll be starting our own chapter. He was just asked today, so we're doing that. I'm going to be doing some things with YOPN that are coming out. And Drive Towards Cure has a really big, really awesome event coming up for World Parkinson's Day also that I have a little bit of a hand in too. So got my fingers everywhere.
So Deb was my first podcast ever, and my wife.
I love Deb. She's awesome. She's wonderful. She calls me on every holiday. She does her walk and talk, and she's amazing. She's an amazing person for to put it out there and raise all this money for people with Parkinson's in her mom's memory. Very much is like what you're doing is, it's incredible. They're doing incredible work. Their funding goes directly towards patient care, and that's amazing.
I'm always amazed. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm always amazed at Melissa, how you have your finger on the pulse of so much going on. I could not even tell you a third of that. I would have to have my calendar in front of me, several notebooks, and But you do this all the time. It's like, you want to know what's going on
Yeah.
in the Parkinson's community, ask Melissa, because I have no idea, and she will be able to tell you everything. So I marvel at that.
Yeah.
So again, you have skills and talents I will never have.
This is basically like my job at this point, you know, and even Greg, he laughs because I'm like naming off people, you know, like this person and that person and that person and this person and he's like, I can't keep track of them, like who is who, and you know, and I'm constantly messaging people in other groups, and he's like, I don't know where you find the time, because you know we're still having a relationship here and I don't feel put out. So like I'm like I'm just kind of everywhere. But it's good because it, you know, it's bringing people from over here,
Right.
and people from over here, over there, and it's like we're kind of just connecting those dots, and there's, I mean, think about, you know, Mark, when you and I first kind of started on this whole Instagram thing, like it was around the same time, you know, relatively, and there weren't really a lot of people. Now we've got people from Spain, and we have people from France, and we have people from England, you know, like we've all kind of just become this melting pot of a community, and that's how it gets accomplished. Just keep plugging away at those connecting those strings.
Yeah. I hear you. I try, but I literally, you know, just like you're saying, like Greg, I don't know how you do it. I'm like, I try and remember names, and I try and remember where did I see that, and I can't remember. And so again, it's just, I love
It's
it
hard.
because that's one of your skill sets that we all benefit from, is we talk about diversity and how diverse teams come together to make a whole package. That's what you bring to the table, and I love it because
Yeah.
I don't know. Ask Melissa, you know.
I'm like throwing out stuff from France and Spain, and I'm like, you know, I'm resharing stuff, and I'm like, just translate it, just hit translate. But you know, people message me, they're like, how do you read it? And I'm like, hit the translate button on the bottom. There's amazing stuff out there that like Computer Parkinson has some incredible information, but if you don't speak Spanish, it's a little bit difficult because it's not translated yet. So just a vessel.
Mark, what about you? What do you have going on? I know you always have something.
Well, it's funny. You know, I hear some comments about you know, Mark, you don't post as much as you used to, and I certainly don't. And one reason why is because I am involved with a lot of different aspects or layers within the Parkinson's Foundation. As an example, one of the things that I've been working on with the with Parkinson's Advisory Council is the very hospital book that Esther raised up. I was on the group that actually read through that and pre-approved it for distribution. So when she holds that up, it's like, that's the conclusion of a lot of work behind the scenes. And that's what I'm becoming more involved with, is stuff behind the scenes. And I really enjoy that, because to me, that's some of the fun stuff. That's the logistical stuff behind the stuff that you actually see. And I have a history and a background in logistics and operations. And when you talk about pulling stuff together behind the scenes, that's kind of what I do. And so it's fun to be a part of that. My website, I'm increasing. It's, you know, markinthepark21.com, which, you know, very, very creative. That's my social media handles with a .com at the end. That's all it is, right? But we do have a podcast that I'm working on with Nikki, and it's not Parkinson's related, although Parkinson's is discussed. It is it's Making It Meaningful, the podcast, and we are, you know, we talk about podcasts, Parkinson's on the podcast as it relates to us and other things, but it's really about people in general that are finding ways to make things meaningful through diverse and difficult circumstances. So I'm working on that with her, and that's another thing that I'm really enthused about working with. But literally, it's I'm posting. I had 9 meetings with the Parkinson's Foundation in the month of November,
Wow.
along with my full-time job and whatnot. And I didn't notice it until I got in Thanksgiving. I was like, wow, there's a lot of stuff going on, right? But it's all stuff. And that's, so again, a lot of that's behind the scenes, but that's great. That's wonderful. And I continue to meet people that challenge me, that inspire me, that cause me to grow. That's why I got into this. It was to tell my story and to help other people tell their stories. And George, again, I just applaud you for what you're doing. These two here that are with us, by the way, when you said let the ladies go first, I always think about let the brains and the beauty go first, and then I'll just bring up the rear. But with both Melissa and Esther, you've got really well spoken, very not just well spoken, but they have an ability to relate their story or what they're talking about in a way that gets down to the nitty gritty and to what you're experiencing in the matter. And that's why I respect them so much, because it's not ethereal stuff up here. It's what's going on with them personally and sharing that. And that's a powerful testimony. And then George, for you to tie it all together and bring people into your presence with the podcast or to get other people's stories out there, that is really what this is all about. So I want to thank you all for what you're doing, because it's amazing the impact that you're making on the Parkinson's community, which involves, like we talked about, people with Parkinson's, yes, but so much so is the caretakers as well. And that's the undervalued part of the community that we need to voice up and elevate more, is that caretaker portion.
I just want to sum up by thanking everyone. Everyone here has family, work, social media posting to do, and a lot of other things along with everyone listening. We want to thank you for your time. But thanks, Melissa, Esther, Mark, and thank myself. But last thing I just want to say, and this is just a saying I start saying every podcast, but this is for all you viewers and for the three of you, but we love you and we support you, the whole family. We care about you, and you're never alone. We will continue to fight, advocate for you, and together our voices are just so much stronger. And I think we're just getting started. So wait till 2024. And again, a big thanks to everyone, all you listening. Feel free to share this. And once it's out, we'll obviously share our social media. And this is really just about sharing. Let's get it out to the others that aren't in the Parkinson's community, those who are not caring for loved ones with Parkinson's, because it's a partnership, a teamwork, and we really need everyone to be a part of this so we can finally end Parkinson's disease forever. So again, thanks everyone. Again, enjoy your holidays too.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. Bye.